Listen up, all fight fans and fitness junkies. You've been listening to me talk about Jocko Fuel for a while now, and if you've been waiting, the wait is over. This August, you can score a massive 30% off on all of Jocko Fuel's top-tier supplements. That's right, 30% off. Jocko Fuel is loaded with all of the good stuff and none of the bad. We're talking no added sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and absolutely no gray area or banned substances. Just pure, clean fuel to power your performances. And guys, I really want you to try some of my favorites like Jocko Go and Jocko Hydrate. This deal is only going to be available for the month of August. So use code Chael30 or go to JockoFuel.com. Don't wait. Fuel up with Jocko Fuel and crush your goals. Guys, click on the link below to make it happen. All right, Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria are grappling. Their grappling is going to be under Abu Dhabi rule set, so you're going to have 20 minutes. There are going to be judges. The judges aren't supposed to be involved. You two boys are supposed to go out and settle it yourself. But should we get to 20 minutes, we'll have a way to figure this thing out. Who do you think wins that? Topuria versus Holloway. Who wins that? And of all the scenarios I could give you, that might be your hardest. Because while you recognize that both of them, at least in theory, are very good grapplers, you haven't seen a lot of it. Like, that's not something that you actually know. You don't close your eyes and have a frame of reference for how Topuria does off his back on the ground. Or how Topuria does on top with somebody in their guard on the ground. The same would go for Max. So, okay, now let's just make it a boxing match. These guys are just going to box. 5 5-minute rounds. MMA rules standards. Going to be judged 10-9. Use MMA time set. And it's just boxing. Who do you have? You want to know what? You want to know what I think? I know this is going to be very closely divided, but if I had a way, more of you than not lean towards Topuria, but you don't know why. Okay, great. Now these guys they're gonna box, but they can both throw 4 kicks. At anywhere they want, they can throw 4 kicks. Now, what I just did is describe for you exactly what's going to happen. These two are going to go have a boxing match. And they can, if they want, throw up to 4 kicks, but those aren't going to be very affecting the outcome of the match. They're not going to knock somebody out. They're not going to change the judge's decision. They're going to really focus on their hand. They're really going to focus on circling. So now you come down to all the basic questions with boxing. Who's faster? Who's more powerful? Who's got the head movement? Who's got the endurance? I think you have a really hard time answering that. Like, if I asked you who was going to win between Max and Topuria, you'd have given me an answer, and you're feeling good about it, right? Like, this is starting to be a polarizing fight. Max is one of the most popular and possibly the most popular fighter right now in the locker room. But Topuria's skills are very respected. And the 4 things that do matter in boxing, if I was to ask you between Topuria and Max, who's got better footwork? You're going to have a hard time. Who's got better speed? You're going to have a hard time. If I ask you about power, there does appear to be something special with Topuria. After all, he just knocked out a king of a division. But Max left the division. He fought a champion at a higher weight class. I mean, the only thing we know, historically speaking, and that includes if we were to bring statistics from boxing over, is that the lighter guy does not knock the bigger guy out. But Max did. Who's got the conditioning? And that is always a huge intangible. I mean, it's never discussed when we look at Max versus Justin Gaethje. That was just such a great fight. And talking about conditioning is a double-edged sword where you're inadvertently insulting someone else, and nobody wants to insult Gaethje. If you start saying somebody got tired, and somebody quit are the exact same thing. If a fighter ever has confidence, he tells you before the fight, I'm confident I can win this fight. He actually feels it. He feels it hard. He feels confidence. All he is telling to you is, I think I'm in better shape than that guy. There is nowhere else where you would get confidence. You will ask yourself one question, which is, in a worst case scenario, we get to the end of the fight. Can I follow the golden rule and protect myself at all times or not? And anytime A guy talks about short notice, not the opponent we wanted. Well, we're doing the company a favor. Anytime they're talking about that, they're talking about I didn't have enough time for whatever reason to get my conditioning to where I needed to be confident that I can win. But if you were to be fair with yourselves, and it wasn't because Justin Gaethje started wilting, that's the reason we don't like to talk about it, because we do not inadvertently attempt to give an insult to Gaethje. We love Gaethje and we love that fight, but the truth is, the great denominator, which turned out to be the divisible, was the conditioning of Max. That punch never lands. Had Max not been in such great shape, but he was fighting at a class that he never won before. He didn't want to be in that weight class. He had a bad experience the one time he went up, and that was against Dustin Poirier, and that's just a quote coming from Max. He is comfortable back at 45. He is confident down at 45. He has beaten everybody in the world at 45, or he has been right in there with them, except for one guy, and it's only because they haven't met up, and that is going to be Ilia Topuria. So when you pick this fight, and guys, you want to know the genesis? You want to know where the genesis of this theme that I'm even speaking to you from? I read a headline from Max Holloway, who says, at first a lot of people laughed, but at 308, I will have the last laugh, or they won't be laughing anymore, right? You know, one of those, and I just sitting back, and I even turned to my partner, Ryan, we're reading this news together. I said, Ryan, did I miss, who laughed at Max? Ryan says, I don't know. I go, well, why would Max think he was laughed at? Like, what part of this is supposed to be funny? The ridiculous part is going up at 300 and having a main event that's not put in the main event spot. They could have laughed about that. A ridiculous part is having DraftKings only having Max as a 2-1 underdog against Justin Gaethje. People could have laughed about that. The idea that Max Holloway would steal 300, UFC 300, which at least in theory was to be Dana White's crowning moment, and he stole the entire thing, that would have been something you could have laughed at. Knockout of the night, knockout of the year, fight of the year candidate, that's something you could have laughed at. What is funny about Max going down and proclaiming that he could beat Ilia Topuria? Who told Max that somebody's laughing about that? I don't know if there has been a fight at featherweight in history that has felt more serious. And I would save one. Save one would be Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo. That felt serious. That needed to happen for a number of different reasons. Legacy and championships and time was going to stand still until those two got in there and they figured it out the hard way. That is the one and only exception I can find. I have not seen a 145-pound title fight more necessary than this, and there's nothing funny about it. Ilia Topuria doesn't beat you in nice and funny ways. He bludgeons you until you fall asleep against your will. There's nothing funny about that. Max Holloway will chop you like a tree. He will start low, he will go high, he will finish in the midsection until you are so fatigued you cannot even put your hands up anymore. Forget about hitting him back. Forget about throwing a punch back. Brian Ortega, who trains as hard as anyone can train, said after that fight, I was at a level of fatigue, I could not put my hands up. I couldn't put them where they needed to be to help slow down the force of Max's constant pressure of his left and right hands. This is Ortega speaking. There's nothing funny about that. There's something horrific about it. But wherever Max thought he's being laughed at, or where maybe it's that his goal and his dream to recapture the championship that he's being laughed at, Max is a champion right now. Right now as we speak. He is a sitting reigning champion. He is the number one contender for the 45-pound championship, which he wants more than anything else in the sport, of which is a belt he's already had. Nobody's laughing at Max Holloway. Nobody's laughing at the idea or the concept that he belongs in this spot or that he can win in this spot. But time is getting closer, and the only thing between these guys is a little bit of space. Where do you side? Where do you side with what you've seen as a body of work? Not just the knockout. You can't just remember the knockout Topuria over Volk, because you'd be forgetting 5 minutes of his life before that, which was a round that he lost to Volk. So what do you make of it? Max versus Topuria. What part of this do you find funny?